Today on the table I brought you the Winchester 1887 trench gun. The capacity on this will vary slightly depending on what length of shell you use. There's certain 2 3/4 shells where you can get a total of 7 round capacity, and then there's some where you can only get a 6. Basically, you're looking at 5 in the tube, 1 riding on the carrier, and 1 in the pipe. Now this is a lever action. It doesn't have like any type of real hammer, so definitely be careful with setting down the hammer. This will take your model 1913 bayonet. Got a heat shield. Now you're probably at the point in the video where you're like, dude, they never made an 1887 trench gun. And yes, this is true. Out of all the old Winchesters, the 1887 was the only one they really didn't make a trench gun. Now, John Moses Browning was a genius and an artist, and he made beautiful, beautiful firearms that were a complete work of art. Except for the 1887. He was basically working on the pump action, but there was a huge demand for a lever action shotgun. And they're like, Browning, you make shotguns. You make lever actions. I want you to make me a lever action shotgun. And he tried talking them out of it, and they wouldn't really do it. And you gotta give the customer what they want. So, he made a lever action shotgun, but it's lacking his finesse, his master craftsman skill, so the reliability isn't that good. So when they were looking for a trench gun, this was one of the ones that came up for an option, but obviously due to the poor reliability, they chose a pump action over this. Now loading this is a bit different. So what you gotta do is you gotta crack the action open. And go into the tube. So it's kind of a pain. So myself, how I would run this is I would just do twins. I would go 1 on the carrier and then 1 in the pipe. And that's how I would load it. Obviously, like I said, this was never a trench gun, but I figured my life would not be complete if I didn't have every older Browning shotgun as a trench gun. You know, except for the black powder ones. So before I went to the grave, this had to be made. Now, I was talking about this in another video about how I want to do a bunch of stuff to it, cut the stock down on that. Unfortunately, the guy that this is actually for, because this is not my shotgun, I'm making it for someone else, he's like crazy long. So like when I'm running the lever, my arm's completely extended. This is practically still at a 90. So this particular one, we're not going to cut the stock. Depending on how well this video does, I'm going to make a bunch of these. And nicer shotguns too. But the heat shield will fit on. Basically the front end of this shotgun is the exact same as, say, a Winchester Model 97. What a blast. I gotta say, this is one of the funnest projects I have done yet. Yes, it's not the most practical, like zombie apocalypse, World War III, whatever. This would definitely stay at home. It would not come out. But man, is it cool. Now the bayonet, this is a replica bayonet we ordered, and it's still covered in burnt gunpowder. Anyway, it's not the strongest. As you can see in this video right here, when I stab into something, well, you probably can't see it in the video, but anyways, when I stab in, the blade does get some flex, so this will never hold like a really super good edge. but it serves its purposes. I wanted a replica anyway just to stab some shit. Now this is actually the customer's, it's not mine. But it does in fact fit on my 1897. So it will work out. As you can see, the sling's off. I had to borrow it for his shotgun because his sling is still coming in the mail. Now this is practical. This I could take to war. The 1887, not so much. It's got some feeding issues. Bayonet him! Bayonet him. Now, your hand really gets beat up from trying to lever this, so what I was doing is I was just going like this and levering it. So it's kind of your choice, but for me, that's exactly what would work good. Now when it comes to topping this bad boy off, trying to load the tube is extremely difficult. So what I decided to do was twin loads. Now there's two different ways you can do it. You can either go one in the chamber and then push one on the carrier, or push one on the carrier first. So you take your two shells. If you're going to do the chamber one, you take them, go in, close it, and then like that. If you're going to do one on the carrier first, push down, then one in the pipe. Now this did seem to run better the more we used it. All we shot throughout the whole day was just high velocity slugs. This is more of a buckshot gun. Because of how they did the bead sight and how high this sticks up in the back here and I couldn't get it to lower down, this bead sight is almost impossible to use unless you're up at an angle. So basically this would be like point of aim, point of impact at like 125 yards. So you're better off just instinct shooting it and forgetting about the bead for now. And you can instinct shoot it just fine. We were shooting about 45, 50 yards. What were you aiming for?
Center mass.
Not too bad.
I'd deploy right around in here. So recoil, bad trigger pull, obviously.
So what's left to do on this? What we gotta do is we still gotta blue the front end right there. I had asked him to chop the barrel down and nub it with this because I wanted him to work on it too, so he felt more a part of the project, if that makes any sense. You just appreciate projects more if you put in some of the work yourself. So I'm like, hey, get a tubing cutter and then take this off and cut the barrel down. Well, I didn't clarify very well, so instead he left this on and just cut it right there, so it screwed up the bluing right there. I wanted it so it was nubbed back just a little bit, so then you wouldn't be able to tell, and it would look awesome. I mean, yeah, you're supposed to have a little nub that sticks out, but I just like the way they look better when it's nubbed off. So that's still got to be blued, but I got all the screws in. I got them nicely staked. The handguard kept sliding forward. That may not be the firearm's fault itself. It could be because this heat shield isn't letting it compress right or something like that. So what we're going to have to do is pull off the handguard and put epoxy underneath and then reset it so that it won't move around. Also, the stock, it's got a little bit of movement in there, but how this works is the whole stock right here is hollow, and then there's just one little section of wood with a single screw that goes through. So this is also going to have to come off. We'll put epoxy on there and then put it back on and then clamp it down. It really needs like 1 or 2 more screws right here, giving it clamping power so the stock is nice and sturdy. It's not broken, but that little bit of movement over a long period of time, this will eventually break, so that's got to be fixed. But we got the sling successfully mounted. His sling is still coming. Like I said, I just threw mine on here from my 97. The bayonet, the replica one I was talking about, it fits, but it's got some slop in there. But it does stay on while you're shooting the shotgun. So do I recommend this project and would I do it again? Absolutely yes. This is just cool as hell. Yes, like the 1887 isn't the best design, but this is for a showpiece or like range fun anyway. There's a couple of different reasons I would do it. One, because this barrel actually gets really hot. Even with this heat shield on there, it was still getting pretty warm, but I could touch it. Not a problem. But yeah, this barrel would get smoking hot, and because of how this handguard is, you have no choice. Like, no matter how you position your hands, they're always going to be touching the barrel. So I definitely recommend doing the heat shield. Not to mention, how cool is it to attach a sword to a shotgun? I mean, that's just freaking awesome. Oh, and you might be concerned because the bayonet's kind of got like an upward angle, but it is clear of the barrel. Even if you were shooting shot, your wad don't open until much farther past here. That's how come they're able to put silencers on shotguns. So don't worry about it. You're not going to run into any sort of impacts. I wanted to do a bunch of these, but I tried to get some manufacturers to sponsor me. This way I could put them out and keep doing prototypes until I master it. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any manufacturers to sponsor me, and believe me, I messaged everyone that makes one of these shotguns, and then everyone that makes the replica parts. So I had to do this one for a customer. I don't get to keep this one, but this one will eventually, I'm going to do it for myself. I don't know if I'm going to use a PW87 for my base or not. It all depends. I got to give that a lot more thought, but if you're going to pick any other model besides the PW87, you're going to be looking at like $1,000. And it's still an 1887 design, which is not a very good design. Basically, Browning, when he made this, he had no intentions of making a lever action shotgun. But because the demand was there, and they were persistent about it, he made one. But he didn't really put his artistic skill into the 1887. Because he was coming out with the 37, or yeah, I think it's 37. This is the 97, which is basically the smokeless version of the 37. And this is a far better design. The pump action, it just feeds right. This is a really nice shotgun. So this kind of got the short end of the stick. But it's still cool as hell. And who doesn't want a lever action shotgun? Especially after Terminator 2. Like, everybody wants one after that. And this is an original idea. I've scoured the internet looking for other designs like this, and yes, I am the first one to ever make an 1887 trench gun. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe.